I'm Jeff Hunt. He's Bill Thorpe. It's Wednesday. $710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460 FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range, this is the Jeff and Bill Show where you hear both sides. Boy, this is a hot story today as we discuss the indictment of James Comey, the former FBI director. Phone lines hot. People diving in to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Robert in Highlands Ranch. Good morning, Robert. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hey, this is going to go nowhere. That lady, the black congresswoman in California that said, "I will end him tonight," is much worse than seashells. But I am so tickled by the fact that they're bringing him to court again, and I hope again and again and again, because he ran so many people, between him and Congress, ran so many people out of money that were in Trump's network. I mean, it was just continuous. And nobody thinks about that brunette gal that used to be his private secretary or whatever. She was always seen with him. She went broke. This guy is a sleuth. I don't even like looking at him. And these Democrats, anyone that's a Democrat, the fact that you voted for a guy that had a health secretary with bad makeup and a dress, and he's a dude, that says it all.
Do you think that someone could say on the other side, well, the fact that you voted for someone whose health secretary talks about wanting to eat dead animals and rejects obvious science is also an issue? I mean, if we're going to talk about cabinet secretaries.
We all eat dead animals. No,
well, not ones that you find in a park.
I was going to say.
But wait, hang on a sec. Hang on a sec, Robert. Robert, you understand the reference I was making. I understand the glib response, but you understand the reference. He's talking about eating dead animals that he found in a park. So you understood. I appreciate the response, and it was clever, but you get the question.
The reason he took a Kennedy was to get elected. I mean, that was a brilliant, brilliant move. But he needs to come home. All this foreign stuff, and then the health care. My health care went from $500 to $1,900, and he says, "Oh, I don't want the money to go straight to the insurance." I could give a rat's patootie if it goes to them. I don't see it.
But the Trump administration says you're going to see more cuts in your health care support. Your rates and everything are going to go up because he says we're in a war. And no, he said it recently in a speech that we can't pay for things like Medicare, Medicaid. We can't do the stuff internally because we're at war. The guy who was America First is now telling us, the guy who voted for Robert is now telling us that because of the war, we can't take care of what's internal. We just don't have the money for it anymore. What do you do with that?
Hey, that's not funny. I go on Medicare May 1st.
Oh, I know. I'm not trying to make it funny, man. I'm just telling you what he's saying. Because you seem to be upset about the Iran war. I'm just saying this is a direction. This is a little bit of a direction outside of where we're going with Comey. But what do you do with that? The fact that he's saying we need to have $1.5 trillion budget for defense. We have to increase this, and the cuts have to come from domestic programs. And he is targeting Medicare, Medicaid. He's targeting infrastructure. He's targeting those programs.
Well, I think that Congress is failing. We have all three. They should put into law every thing that Trump's written up as whatever you call it, the overnight.
Oh, the executive orders. Yeah, that's the one thing, Robert. I think that's the one thing that I believe Trump supporters like yourself are going to be most disappointed in at the end of his term is that Congress didn't do anything about his executive orders, because the next person, if it is a Democrat or even someone that disagrees with him, can invalidate every single one of those orders with a single stroke of the pen. So all the stuff that you may like that Trump has done does evaporate. Now, Robert, I want to bring you back to the Comey 8647. One of the things I brought up earlier was the fact that there was 8646 merch being sold in numerous places. Amazon, Etsy, a number of online stores were selling varieties of hats, sweatshirts, mugs, all sorts of different designs. Do you think, first, that Comey's picture on Instagram was a threat to Trump? And if so, is the 8646 merch a similar threat? Your thoughts on the post and then your thoughts on the merch.
I do not think the post was a threat. I think it was to sell his book, and I don't think that he's going to be found guilty of anything. But I wish that they would bring him back a couple more times and several other people to run them out of lawyer money.
I like
I appreciate that. And I hadn't thought about the book promotion. I like the connection that you're making there, Robert. And it was always kind of the idea that I know he dislikes Trump, but why then, why now to make that kind of a post? Yeah, book. Makes sense, Robert. I appreciate you connecting those dots. Thanks, man. Have a good day.
I'm with Robert and Mary. Anytime these guys are spending time in a courtroom after what they've made Donald Trump do is a good thing. All right, now is time for the news.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Hey, good morning. Hump Day, 39 with some clouds out there and a chance of showers again in Denver. Bring on that rain, please. 37 in the Springs, expecting highs in the lower 60s. News sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning. For a new home heating and cooling system, contact your Lennox dealer. Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at pastorcamp.com. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Our top story today is National Fentanyl Awareness Day. The DEA says fentanyl remains the leading cause of death among Americans ages 18 to 45. Continue to talk to young people about all the dangers of all drugs as much as possible.
As the direct descendant of King George III, I know this is a nation that never gives up.
That's King Charles. He and Camilla are in New York today. President Trump says King Charles agrees Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. The British king made remarks at a formal state dinner last night, but was not able to comment on Iran because the king is required to remain politically neutral. Afterward, Trump said the U.S. would not allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon and claimed that Charles agrees, quote, even more than he does. And Trump is reportedly preparing for an extended blockade of Iran.
U.S. officials tell the Wall Street Journal that at a recent White House meeting, Trump opted to continue squeezing Iran's economy and oil exports by preventing shipping to and from its ports. The report claims that Trump assessed that his other options, resume bombing or walk away from the conflict, carried more risk than maintaining the blockade. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth will testify on Capitol Hill later today about the current state of the U.S. war with Iran. I'm Mark Mayfield.
The DOJ is indicting former FBI Director James Comey again. Well,
on Tuesday, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the latest charges are connected to a social media post featuring the message 8647, which the DOJ says was a call to assassinate Trump. A query to ChatGPT for the meaning of the American expression 286 comes back with to reject, get rid of, or nix. The offending message was a picture of seashells on a beach arranged to say 8647. Trump is the 47th president. In a video message, Comey had this to say.
I'm still innocent. I'm still not afraid. And I still believe in the independent federal judiciary. So let's go.
I'm Michael Kastner.
Just another clown show left and right. More than 70 House Democrats have signed a letter urging President Trump to keep Chinese automakers from overwhelming the U.S. car market. The effort was led by Michigan Representative Debbie Dingell and supported by 73 colleagues. A lawmaker who was sexually assaulted by a Lyft driver last year is out with a new version of a rideshare safety bill. The measure would require driver background checks at least every 6 months and crack down on imposter and shared accounts. Last year's version was vetoed because Governor Polis said there was unclear language and inoperable timelines, and the major rideshare companies threatened to leave if the bill became law. This time, lawmakers are working with Uber and Lyft on the legislation. A bipartisan sports gambling bill is now on to the state house after it passed the state Senate. The measure aims to curb addictive sports betting habits by limiting 6 deposits per customer in a 24-hour period and restricting the use of credit cards for sports betting accounts. The measure also prohibits the marketing of sports betting to audiences where the majority of people are expected to be under 21. A proposed ban on prop bets was removed from the bill. All right, the Broncos looking at quarterback Bo Nix after he recently underwent a second procedure on his right ankle. ESPN reporting the Knicks had a second operation on his surgically repaired right ankle during a follow-up doctor's visit last week in Birmingham. Nix is still expected to be in training camp, but off-season workouts could be limited and will be limited. Game 6, Nuggets, T-Wolves, tomorrow at Target Center, facing elimination, 3-2, trying to force a Game 7 back here in Denver this weekend. And the Avalanche, they get ready for the Stars, and the Wild, they have a nice little opportunity to practice and prepare and rest their bodies a little before the playoffs continue. The Rockies lost their season opener against the Reds 7-2, back at it today at 440. 37 in the Springs, 39 in Denver. That's the latest. I'm Blake Olson. More of the Jeff and Bill Show ahead on News Talk 710, KNUS in Denver, and now on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in the Springs. This is where you hear both sides. We are the Jeff and Bill Show.
Temperatures along the Front Range will be a little bit warmer today, but we're still looking at some chances of developing showers and a few thunderstorms this afternoon as a small Pacific wave comes through. Temperatures for Denver and Colorado Springs will be upper 50s and lower 60s, and some showers and evening thunderstorms will linger into tonight. Lows mid to upper 30s. Be ready for a period of cool, damp weather Thursday night, and into the day Friday as a push of cool, moist air upsloping into the I-25 corridor in eastern Colorado Plains will lead to some needed precipitation. For the I-25 corridor and adjacent plains between Thursday through late Friday and overnight Thursday into Friday morning. Some of that could be snow, especially up on the Palmer Divide between Denver and Colorado Springs. Travelers keep that in mind, along with areas of fog, as highs will only be 45 to 50 Thursday, low to mid-30s Thursday night, and only 50s Friday. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
.710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460 FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the Front Range. This is the Jeff and Bill Show where you hear both sides. This summer, the future of American conservatism taking center stage at the Western Conservative Summit, July 30th through August 1st at Colorado Christian University. As we mark the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, we gather under the theme, A New Birth of Freedom, Reigniting the American Dream. This is a moment to reflect and recommit to the self-evident truths that built America. Be part of the conversation shaping the next 250 years of American exceptionalism with incredible speakers, including Kayleigh McEnany, Ben Sasse, Mike Pence, Riley Gaines, Isabel Brown, Daniel Hannan, and more. The summit kicks off July 30th with the William L. Armstrong Award Dinner by honoring Heritage Foundation founder Dr. Ed Feulner and featuring a keynote address from the 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Tickets on sale now. See the full list of speakers at westernconservativesummit.com. That's westernconservativesummit.com. Headlined yesterday, King Charles saying UK and U.S. partnership more important than ever. In U.S. Congress address on Tuesday, King Charles III, or as Ilhan Omar would say, King Charles the 111th, became the second British monarch to address a joint session of the U.S. Congress, affirming the enduring U.S.-UK alliance during America's 250th anniversary celebration. Amid strains of the U.S. war with Iran, the visit seeks to preserve diplomatic coordination as President Donald Trump's criticism of NATO has strained the long-standing bilateral relationship. Charles acknowledged times of great uncertainty in his address, referencing the April 25th shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, while urging unyielding resolve in backing Ukraine. Before the address, the king met privately with President Trump in the Oval Office, where both described the discussion as a really good meeting, bolstering ties during the state visit. Following congressional engagements, the royal couple will visit New York City's 9/11 Memorial before traveling to Virginia for a 250th anniversary celebration, completing their 4-day state visit. Now, Billy, you probably saw some of the videos, some of the pictures from yesterday. Impressive. I mean, they brought out a lot of pomp and circumstance around the former king, or the current king, but our former leaders coming to America. And the dynamics here are fascinating to me. So many angles. Can I just start with this? This is an easy one. Yeah. The same people that have been hosting No Kings rallies all over America were standing to clap the king in Congress yesterday.
Is that a problem?
It's weird.
Why?
I thought we're no kings. No kings. No kings. No. Hey, king.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to America.
Couple of things. He's a king of a different country. None of the people in that Congress are their subjects. 2, he's a guest. Now, let's just imagine, just for a second, let's imagine that none of the Democrats stood up or even did worse, booed, yelled, "No kings, boo, boo."
They do that to the president.
Wait. This is an invited guest, the sovereign of another country. It's a little bit different when you end up booing your own leader versus the guest that's invited to the White House. So what would be the reaction of people that are saying, "Oh my God, look at the No Kings people standing up and clapping," if they would have done what you wanted, which was boo, not stand up, do other things, yell at him? Would you sit there and say, what about a lack of decorum? This is an invited guest. How come we're booing a guy that's not even the ruler of the country? This is the issue. It's that I saw that, and it is just a rock that is used to throw at people that you politically disagree with, because it doesn't matter what they did. None of the behavior would have been acceptable. None of it. Because it doesn't matter what they did, it would have been criticized.
Or just being people that run out there and claim your political opponent is a king all the time, and then organizing all over the country No Kings rallies, and then when a king actually shows up, oh man, we're falling all over ourselves. Look,
but it's not our king.
Happy to be there. Not our king.
Yeah,
kings in other countries.
Well, the No King was about the country here.
Like
no, it was
globalists
about here.
and no borders and
not
all
according,
that stuff.
Not according to those protests, the nice senior citizens. That wasn't what they were down there for. The signs they made, and I don't remember who it was. I don't think it came out of the White House, but there was a post that ran through social media yesterday that had Donald Trump and King Charles standing there, and it said 2 kings on it. And I saw a number of conservative lawmakers share it. And I saw the critique from people going, "Oh my God, what are you?" And I'm like, they're doing that to piss you off. Same thing. And so I see the people that are outraged about the behavior of the Democrats playing the same game, because nothing the Democrats could do would make you happy. And it doesn't matter what the caption was on Trump and King Charles. The other wouldn't have been happy. People would have been mad about it. Yeah, just because of what it was. Yeah, they were.
Donald Trump did point that out, that King Charles was able to get Democrats to stand and applause when he has not been able to. So,
yes.
Tip of the hat to King Charles III.
That is true. That is true. That is a good one.
Here's the big thing for me in all this. We're in our 250th birthday, the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Who are we? What are we celebrating, and where are we going? Birthdays are a good time to reflect on that, and this was, honestly, a really important moment for a few reasons. I thought there were two great clips yesterday. Here's King Charles in Congress.
And, Mr. Speaker, for many here, and for myself, the Christian faith is a firm anchor and daily inspiration that guides us, not only personally,
That was a long applause line, and the Democrats stood and applauded. I just want to play the very beginning of that again. This is King Charles talking about Christianity as a firm anchor.
And, Mr. Speaker, for many here, and for myself, the Christian faith is a firm anchor and daily inspiration that guides us, not only personally.
A firm anchor that guides us. Now, I'm thrilled to see Democrats stand up and applaud that. I live in Colorado, where my Christian faith is constantly under attack by the state, to the point where we have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court now 3 times, 4 times, if you talk about the upcoming case, just to be able to practice our faith in this state. So to see Democrats stand up and applaud that our Christian faith is a firm anchor and a daily guidance is really important, because it's reminding people that America is not this mathematical, secular, stale nation that was put together on a piece of paper. It is a great inheritance of the fullness of Western civilization. And Donald Trump got that in his speech a little bit later at the White House. Here's Trump.
Of monuments to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, honoring the British King might seem an ironic beginning to our celebration of 250 years of American independence, but in fact, no tribute could be more appropriate. Long before Americans had a nation or a constitution, we first had a culture, a character, and a creed. Before we ever proclaimed our independence, Americans carried within us the rarest of gifts, moral courage, and it came from a small but mighty kingdom from across the sea. For nearly 2 centuries before the Revolution, this land was settled and forged by men, women, who bore in their souls the blood and noble spirit of the British. Here on a wild and untamed continent, they set loose the ancient English love of liberty and the Great Britain's distinctive sense of glory, destiny, and pride. And that's what it is: glory, destiny, and pride.
It's Donald Trump with King Charles III yesterday at the White House. Before we had a government, before we had a nation, we had a culture, a character, and a creed. Bill, what do you think he's talking about?
Oh, he's just talking about some of the Puritans and when they came across. Yeah, that was my interpretation there. Yeah, it was neat to see. I like where King Charles was going on the shared Christian faith. It's ironic because, of course, he's the head of the Anglican Church of England, which doesn't necessarily agree with the Protestant religions here, nor with the Catholic religion. So it's interesting that there were so many cheers for that, in which if we got into larger conversations of doctrine, they'd start yelling at each other. They absolutely would start yelling at each other. But I appreciate where he's talking about the foundational principles. And it's nice. It's nice to see both Trump and King Charles honor the shared history, even though it has been somewhat divisive. But again, we're in theory just a bunch of angry colonists that protested a lot and broke away from, the motherland. And I like the tension, the acknowledgement, and the understanding between the two of them, and the reference to the points. Yeah, what'd you take?
I think this is important because I've lived through the 90s, the 2000s, and this belief that there were certain things that were universal, like democracy. And if we open up the world's eyes to this wonderful thing called democracy, then they would, of course, embrace it, and that their lives would be better. And in fact, we need to rely on not individual nations, but international bodies like the United Nations or the European Union to bring about democracy to the rest of the world. And it's going to be wonderful and beautiful. What was happening yesterday was really important for us as Americans to reflect on. And that is the notion that we do have an inherited, a shared, particularly with Western Europe, and I would say Israel as well, culture, character, and creed. And that is the notion of Western civilization. And for those of us that lived through the war in Iraq, lived in Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan, and watched billions of dollars, thousands of lives to be spent in an effort to bring democracy to some of these other nations, it didn't work. In fact, literally within hours of leaving these countries, they reverted back to their culture, character, and creed. And so I think it's important that upon the 250th birthday of America, we reflect on what our culture, creed, and character are that make us distinctly American, that help us understand the importance of Western civilization and the impact that has in the world, and how we can advance and promote those throughout the rest of the world. And I think it takes some sobriety, some clear-eyedness when it comes to whether or not other cultures, characters, and creeds will just accept democracy the way that we have here in America, or whether or not we're just spinning our wheels and they never will. I think that you need to have a little bit of reflection on that. So we often hear, and it was addressed in a later part of the speech, that America is an idea. It's an idea. Well, in part, yes. I don't fully reject the idea that it's an idea, but it's so much more than that. It is a culture, a character, and a creed. It's rooted in Western Europe and Western civilization. And I think understanding that helps us understand what makes America work so well.
Interesting. Now, don't hit me.
That's a good. That's a good precursor.
Yes, it is. Now, I'm not trying to make this difficult, but I want to kind of make this difficult. And this isn't to.
We're the guys at the bar.
Yeah, exactly. We're about 3 in, and we're like, okay, what do we do? And I'm not trying to disagree with you. What I want to ask is for your insight or your opinions on the culture of America. How would we define the culture of America? And the reason that I think it is somewhat based on the individual and somewhat complicated at times is, imagine if you were dropped into another country that might not have any point of reference of what America is or what the culture is. And if they asked you, if you're sitting there at one of their cafes, restaurants, at the park, and they start asking about the culture of America, how do you describe that to them? And I find it complex and complicated because we still are that international melting pot where we have been an amalgamation of all sorts of other cultures. and things that have bubbled up. Everything from why we cut down a tree and bring it into the house to why we use the Easter bunny to a whole bunch of other things that we've adapted through other cultures. Most of our Christmas celebration and ornamentation are all adaptations from other cultures. We've all taken those because of immigrants.
Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, how would you define it? I'm again.
Well,
I'm not trying to be difficult,
fine.
but this is fun.
This is a really good question because I think it's rooted in our failure to generally take Western civilization seriously and what that is, right? So we go through school, and most of the time you see it as like a glorified geographical discussion.
Some of us even had Western Civ classes, so that's on the that was on the curriculum.
Because that was when we generally understood that it was important to understand these foundational principles. All right, so we are a Judeo-Christian nation, strongly influenced by both Greek and Roman thought. That becomes the foundation that we're going to start with, okay? Because those philosophical beliefs inform how we think about government and the role of government, for instance. Should the government provide everything for you? Should it be the entity that educates you? Should it be the entity that provides your housing? How about your job? How about your food? A historical analysis of Western civilization will say no. The government should be limited, in part because there's a God at the center of our worldview, and God has set up this universe to operate in certain ways, and one of them that doesn't work very well is centering the government at our life to provide for us. It just doesn't work. Now, there's lots of reasons why it doesn't work, but it just doesn't. And so believing that the government should provide all this, I don't think is rooted in a historical understanding of Western civilization. So those become the core beliefs and tenets. Judeo-Christian, in our worldview. This is why I think you watch people go, well, we shouldn't be in an alliance with Israel. We shouldn't be in an alliance with England. What do they do for us? If you're looking at the world purely through a utilitarian lens, we are all individual nations, and we should only partner with those that deliver benefits for us. It would be a purely utilitarian analysis of kind of international relationships. I can understand why people would want to dismiss Israel and England, but if you look at our shared belief systems and how those belief systems have contributed to the most healthy and flourishing nations in world history, right? You look at Israel's doing really quite well in the Middle East, considering everything they're facing. You look at what England contributed to the world, and you remember at that one point, the sun never set on the British Empire. And yeah, there were terrible things like slavery involved with it, but not everything about the British Empire was terrible. In fact, it brought a lot of good to the world as well. And then you look at the United States, the most successful nation in world history. How capitalism has brought more people out of poverty than any other system in the world. When you analyze all that and you go, well, there's something that we all share together. There's a common family history that we share. Then our alliedship and our relationships matter a lot more than just purely utilitarian. We are advancing something in the world, and what we are advancing is what we have historically called Western civilization. I don't know if that helps.
That does help. It's the only question I would have is when you talk about government control and government controlling things, I believe we can point to countries that we would say are part of Western civilization that exert much more control over their citizenry than we do, yet we wouldn't say they're not part of Western civilization. And I'm going to things like countries that pay for education all the way through university, countries that pay for neonatal care and child care, countries that pay for universal health care, countries that have more mandated time off, countries that have a lot more union support. Things like that would be more mandated control from a government, but we wouldn't necessarily point out most of those countries, and the ones I would point to in those examples would be most of Western Europe. We wouldn't say they aren't part of Western civilization. So I think that's different.
I would parry with the argument that I think they're collapsing. I don't think they're doing as well. I think there's trade-offs there. I think that they've leaned into things that aren't historically Western civilization and aren't doing as well. So, I'm not sure that I would point to them and go.
Well? What would you say not doing as well? I'm just wondering what your barometer
economically,
is.
Tax-wise. I don't. In order to fund those social programs, as you're talking about, the tax burden's a lot higher on people, and so what you don't see out of those countries is great economic development at the level that the United States has.
I don't know. I think that you do see that in some of those countries, in many of those countries. You do see the economic development, and you do see some of those things coming out of the countries as well. So I'm not certain that it proves that it doesn't exist. And the other part is that's not fair. I'm sorry. I was going to talk about economic performance and stock market, et cetera, over the previous 48 months, but that is not fair for this conversation because you're talking about a much larger timeline. Yeah. And I don't believe that it would be fair for me to bring in a small snapshot like that and then have you react to it because I think that I'm constraining the debate. So that's not fair to you.
Well, here's the question I have for you coming back.
Yeah.
Our relationship with England today.
Yeah.
On good terms, on challenging terms, can we recover? Ooh. It's not always about agreeing on everything, but what would be your analysis of where our relationship is with England today? We'll continue that conversation coming up. Yeah, Jason in Denver. Bill is definitely the Cliff Clavin at the bar. All right, let's talk.
Probably am. I'm sorry.
Guy Rees. My wife and I went to the Guy Rees in Parker. They're all over the Denver metro area and had an absolutely fantastic experience. We had purchased blinds online, and they just kept breaking, and then they didn't look good, and they would only go up on one side, and we weren't thrilled. So we decided to go check out what the pros could offer, and we have been thrilled. They have now done 2 projects at our house. They have an incredible selection, Guy Rees does, of Hunter Douglas custom blinds, shades, and shutters. The design pro walked us through everything, helped us find the perfect options to enhance the look and functionality of our home. So whether your curtains are clashing or you want a fresh look, Guy Rees has the solutions for you. Their designers are the experts. They can help you with everything from window treatments to full room decor. Here's the best part. They offer a personalized in-home consultation. They'll come directly to you. You can get the same expert advice right in your own home that we got in ours. Do yourself a favor. Get started today. Visit GuyRees.com to schedule your in-home consultation. That's GUIRYS.com. Go see the great people at Guy Rees. You'll be sure to thank me. More of the Jeff and Bill Show to come. You're listening to us on 710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. Dude, some of your text messages are real deep. I love how you guys are thinking this morning. Keep them coming. We'll be back in a second. This is where you hear both sides. This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460, FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs.
All on the Front Range. This is the Jeff and Bill Show, where you hear both sides. King Charles saying UK and U.S. partnership more important than ever in U.S. congressional address. This was the second time ever that a monarch has spoken in Congress. Historic moment yesterday, and our relationship with Britain has been tenuous over the years. We had the initial, the White House was hilarious in their tweet yesterday. The British are coming. The British are coming.
Yeah,
a reflection on Paul Revere, in the original battle for independence, and then you had the battle later where they burned the White House.
Oh yeah, I have an English friend who has immigrated, lives here, has been here for 20 years. But universally, on July 4th, he posts "Happy Treason Day." So,
Ellie, give me your reflections on the state of U.S.-UK partnership.
I think it is strained, but I do think, as you outlined, because of our shared commonality in history of how this country was born, I think we are going to be more closely aligned with them than probably anybody else, save Israel. But I think the connection to Israel is a little bit different than our connection to England. There are still many Americans that trace back their roots to Europe and understand that this was once a largely British colony system. And I think that that America has somewhat of an affinity for the idea that we somewhat came out of the bosom of England. And I think part of that is because it gives Americans a sense of longer history. That, yes, we are here as a country of only 250 years, but we can trace portions of our history back to, and that's why people do the ancestry and everything else. It gives you some of this longer connection to what went on in the rest of the world. It would be weird as America to say, yeah, all the other stuff that came hundreds of years before, and then we just show up here at the tail end and look at us, because the other things that came before impacted us as far as how the country was set up, immigrants that came over, even down to problems when immigrants were coming into the country and trying to naturalize. So I think that is a little bit strained. I think we've been pushing against them. The British are notoriously slow to react because of that stiff upper lip kind of an idea. And of course, you go through not Neville Chamberlain, but Winston Churchill, and he says, what do you do when you're going through hell? Just keep going. So you just keep going through. So that kind of an attitude, I don't think America is built that way. But I think because of our commonality in how the country was birthed, we will always stay close to them. But I think the relationship is more under strain than any time in my life. And I think that has to do with international treaties, NATO, stuff like that, that it seems that America's view of the international community is beginning to diverge from that of England's. But what about you?
Ooh, the strength of obviously they're not lighting our house on fire like they did at another point in American history. What I was intrigued by watching the speeches yesterday was Trump got it right, that the revolution in many ways, as compared to the French Revolution, for instance, was a reclaiming of of English heritage as opposed to a rejection of it. So if you look at, for instance, the French Revolution, they took their royalty and cut their heads off, right? It was an effort to throw out the French leadership.
Yeah.
And the English or the American Revolution versus the English, I think could very much be argued that it was an effort to reclaim the great traditions of what being an Englishman was, for instance, that the king had gotten away from common law, that the king had abandoned his people, that the king was forcing his will on people. We're Englishmen.
Yeah.
And that, I think, helps explain the difference between the English and the French.
That's a good point. I do like the idea that you went to when the revolution happened, how the French went about it versus how we went about it here. Although I do think that if we could have gotten a hold of George, we probably would have taken his head off. We probably would have tried. At least try.
Thomas Paine might have for 100.
Just might have wanted to. There's a little bit there. Now, what do you think about going forward? What do you think about our international relations? Do you think that our in the future will we grow closer, stay as close to England, or do you think we're going to diverge more from England and Europe?
I think England's on a path to civilizational suicide. I think it's like 10 years ahead of America, but thank God we elected Donald Trump. That kind of pivoted. Okay. But this open border, no birth rate, we don't really understand who we are anymore, what we're doing, ashamed of our history. I mean, that is leading Great Britain to be weaker and weaker and weaker by the day. And I don't know, 250 years from now, if it even continues to exist, if it looks anything like it has, I think it's collapsing. And that's in part due to a lot of its own decisions. There's a text message here from Westy Carlos talking about how the next 250 years of America is not going to look like the past 250 years. And when I look at America, I go, we're more obese, more suicidal, more in debt than we've ever been before. I'm not sure we're better off today than we were even 100 years ago. So are our paths as America and England on the same trajectory of collapsing from the inside? What do you think?
Interesting. I don't see the dire prognostications that you do. I do think that England is facing some difficulties where you're looking at a more of a cultural structure, in my opinion, just what I'm hearing, and I could be wrong about that, where I see an economic failure inside of Britain, and I point back to Brexit. Separating outside of the EU has done more, in my opinion, to harm the economy inside of Britain than any other singular choice they have made, save world wars. I don't think that it was a smart choice. It ended up blowing back into their face, and the promises that were made to the people supporting Brexit have not come to fruition, and it ends up hurting a lot of the economic trade because it set up a ton of new barriers for both workers but also for trade with very close neighbors. And when it is so easy to get goods back and forth across those borders, it made no sense to go through something like Brexit. So I think that where they struggle right now is more economic. We see it's social, but fair point.
All right. Feel free to join the conversation by giving us a call, 303-696-1971, reflecting on the historic King Charles III address at Congress yesterday. Trump and King Charles together. What do you make of our relationship with England at this point? 720-819-5115 is the Dan Caplis Law text line. More of the Jeff and Bill Show to come. You're listening to us on 710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460, FM 101.1, The Answer in Colorado Springs. This is where you hear both sides. This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
710 KNUS in Denver.
AM 1460, FM 101.1, the answer in Colorado Springs.
All along the front line range is the Jeff and Bill show where you hear both sides. Paul Revere never said the British are coming. We were British. He said the regulars are afoot.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I love how we got teachers that listen and we learn stuff in the morning. I mean, come on.
The regulars are afoot.
By the end of the Jeff and Bill
Reminds
show,
me of that.
you are
regulators.
smart.
Mount up.
Yeah.
That's the original Paul Revere. Regulators, mount up.
Yeah, regulators, mount up. But seriously, by the end of the show, because of our texters and our callers, you can be smarter by the end of Jeff and Bill show.
Exactly right.
Not because of anything I've done.
Well, speaking of getting better out there, remember when you had energy all day, you were sharp at work and driven in the gym? Well, you've been dragging through the day, losing focus, skipping workouts, or avoiding intimacy. It's not age. It could be low testosterone. Low testosterone doesn't just drain your confidence. It can lead to fatigue, weight gain, loss of muscle, even increase your risk for heart disease and diabetes. That's why guys are turning to Game Day Men's Health. Personalized treatment in clinic labs with results while you wait, and medical professionals who build a plan just for you. Billy, we got about 30 seconds. Tell them more.
Yeah, and remember, their testosterone test is completely and totally free. Their clinics are located in Aurora, Cherry Creek, Parker, Inglewood, Thornton. Visit GameDayKNUS.com, GameDayKNUS.com to schedule your free testosterone test. After that, you find your number. They will put together a custom data-driven plan just for you. They only go month to month. They're not going to lock you into a long-term contract, but you can start feeling like you did decades ago as early as next week. But you got to make that appointment. GameDayKNUS.com, GameDayKNUS.com. The test is free. Find out your number, then you can make the decision that's best for you.
Billy and I, both customers of theirs, and thrilled to be working with Game Day
Love
KNUS.
them. Feels so
All
good.
right, speaking of drugs, David Oleski, DEA, is joining us next, Special Agent in Charge. It's National Fentanyl Awareness Day. We'll be right back. You're listening to Jeff and Bill Show.
And my partner with the segue of the morning. We'll be right back.